Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, my name is Nikki, and this is my personal official Killer Instinct tier list. Now, we hit our sub goal on Twitch, and I promised you guys that if we did that, I would do a tier list for you guys. I did one at the beginning of the year, and I said I probably wasn't going to do one until the end after the KI World Cup, but I feel pretty confident in this being probably my final tier list. There might be some minor adjustments here and there, but like, my opinion on the top 5 and the bottom 5, that's probably not going to change. I've made videos for those already, so I already have them here ordered. I'm not going to go into explanation on these characters any further. If you want my opinions on the top 5 and the bottom 5 in the game, there will be links in the description to those exact videos. So as you can see here, I have the tiers ordered as S, A+, A, B, and B tier. S, A, B, C, D, F, that doesn't really cut it for this game. I feel like the tiers are pretty close together, and because of the counter breaker mechanic and how much damage each character can do because of it, everybody kind of has a chance of winning depending on the breaker game too, so that's why I feel like the tiers are a lot closer together in this game. With that said, let's start at the top and we will work our way towards the bottom, starting in the S tier. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the S tier is pretty much solely for the top 5 characters just because of how few matchups they have that they lose in. And I'm going to go ahead and add Idol to this list. Now, I think Idol has the best instinct in the game, bar none. With the exception of maybe Spinal, I don't think I can think of any character in the game that's just like, I don't really care about Idol's instinct. I feel like every other character in the game has to respect his instinct for 15 seconds or however long the exact number of instinct lasts. And it's just ridiculous. He controls the screen like no other character in the game when he's in instinct, and he can just mix you up and open you up like no other. So I feel like that and all of the advantages he has outside of instinct in his mage form and his warrior form, the pips that he can build for both of those forms, being able to enhance his abilities and jump cancel and stuff like that. This character is really a notch above the rest. He is really an incredible character, and my god, I fear every single time I see Idol on the other side of the screen. Moving into the A+ tier, this tier is reserved for characters who aren't quite S. They might have a couple more bad matchups than the characters in the S tier. But these characters are still really, really strong. You'll probably see them in top 8s. You might even see them win tournaments because it's possible. These characters are very strong. First up in the A+ tier is going to be the Chief, Thunder himself. One of the best instincts in the game. If you've seen Hologram, then you know how dangerous this character is. He won Twitch Rivals with only using Thunder. This character has some of the best set play and the best 50-50s in the game. I can't say enough good things about Chief Thunder. He's fantastic. He does have some hard matchups. It is possible that Thunder could get zoned out. You have to be very patient walking in with him. But once you are in, you are a walking blender. Okay, so following her grappler brother is going to be Hisako, right behind him in A+ tier. Very, very strong on Oki. One of the best characters in the game, in my opinion. Her parry is really strong. Her tick throw game might not be as strong because you have to use some of your Wrath to use influence and possession, but if you get that hard knockdown, mwah, it is Guess City, population U. Hisako is a master of Okizeme and Killer Instinct. She is really, really strong, great normals, and she only really gets beaten by projectile lockdown, so Riptor, Fulgor, and Arya come to mind. Up next in line is a character who's not necessarily a grappler, but he does have one of the best throws in the game, and that's going to be Glacius. Now, at first glance, Glacius seems like a little bit of a zoner with Shatter and Hail, but this character is actually a mix-up machine, and having a tool as strong as Hail is just a perfect way to lock his opponents down and really get his pressure started. He has great plus frames on his jab. His Cold Shoulder is one of the most obnoxious moves in the game, and this character craps out damage, especially if he has bar on a lockout and uses Shadow Cold Shoulder. Glacius hits like a truck, well deserving of this spot. Filling out the last slot in the top 10 here is going to be Arbiter. Arbiter is ridiculous. Some of the best normals in the game. Having the Carbine is really, really strong for set play. Jumping back and shooting a Carbine shot on somebody's wake up is like a really strong option for checking them and making sure that they stay where they are. He has great overheads as well. He only has one low, but converting off of that low can usually give him an overshield if he has meter. And the overshield mechanic is probably the best thing about Arbiter. When he has the overshield and he is able to have all that extra health, he also has an armor that absorbs projectile hits, and he will not be affected by them. He takes no hit stun. So if he uses a grenade, which can stagger the opponent, and if it hits him without overshield, it'll stagger him too. He could use this as a way to get people off of him on his minus turns. So this character is actually the turn-stealing god when he has his overshield up. We've seen Delta Rayquaza do it a bunch of times. Sonic Dolphin's starting to catch on. Arbiter is ridiculous. Following suit here in the A+ tier, we're going to have Mr. Thang Shuangin himself, Tusk. This character is what I like to call the scrub killer of the game. He's not the best in the game. He does have some losing matchups, but this character is mobility 101. His dash is so godlike, and there's very few things that actually beat it. It's really, really strong for getting across the screen on zoners. It has a very good hurt box. It brings them really low to the ground. And his normals are ridiculous. Not to mention his deflect ability on all of his sword moves, his normals and his special moves that have that little flash animation. He has an install parry, which allows him to deflect any physical hit. And if you time it right, you basically always have a wake up. There is a chart that exists with the frame data for all of the deflect frames on them. I'm going to see if I can get those for you guys and maybe post them in the description. This character is a total, animal. I can't even find the word to describe Tusk. This character hits like a truck as well. Some of the biggest damage output in the game meterlessly, and I am so glad that I play Full War because he is one of Tusk's few counters. I think there's only one character left that's deserving of the slot of A+ tier, and that's going to be Cinder. Cinder is a character that doesn't have a lot of damage output at a first glance, but when you take into consideration how much potential damage this character applies on life bars by using his Inferno, even on block, it builds up a ton of white life. And this character builds up a ton of white life by burning out your limbs as well. And being able to burn out somebody's limbs and try to motivate them to not use those limbs in certain matchups, that's really, really good. Imagine you're fighting against a Rash and you burn out his legs. Now he doesn't want to use a standing heavy kick anymore, and he doesn't want to use the Wrecking Ball anymore. Those are two of the biggest reasons why Rash wins that matchup against Cinder. Now it's almost an even matchup, or maybe it's even in Cinder's favor. Being able to stop somebody from using their tools is a great motivator for Cinder because you get so much damage off of it, and the character's damage output with White Life off of one chance breaks, and this character is really hard to break because of his juggles, and he has 3 really hard to break linkers. This character is a monster. I think he's very well deserving of the A+ tier. Not to mention his mobility, not to mention his zoning with Pyro Bombs. Cinder has a lot going for him. Moving down into the A tier, characters that might have a few more bad matchups than the A+ tier, we are going to start with our man Eagle. Now, Eagle is a character that is widely referred to as top tier. I just don't see it. I think there's some characters that completely counter Eagle and what he wants to do, and I really feel like as soon as you get a character like Rash or even Aghanos on the screen, this is like a really hard character to use. He's very technical with using the bird and with the arrows, but he can lock you down like no other. His set play is really, really strong, and he can clip you from anywhere around the screen, get the bird going, and then you're kind of in a 50-50. He has some really strong mix-up, whether you're in the corner or whether you're mid-screen. His high-low game is fantastic. His damage output is very lacking, though. He has some of the lowest, if not the lowest damage output in the game, bar none. So he relies on opening you up a lot, and that's the kind of what the character does, is he's a mix-up machine, but his damage output is very low, and there are some characters in the cast that kind of just don't have to hold it, like Mira, even Omen comes to mind, and Rash can eat his arrows. So this character is strong, but he's definitely not top tier. Next up in the A tier is going to be a character that I believe is pretty underrepresented, and that's going to be Riptor. You don't see her a lot in tournaments these days, but when you do see her, it's always very interesting because everybody plays her so differently. I believe her to be a pure rushdown character who has decent set play options like her Mortars and her Flame Carpet, but all of the successful Riptors that I see nowadays, they kind of don't really even use it. Like Latalis, like, don't need it. I just use her Frame Traps and her Walk Speed, and that's really what this character does. She's kind of a better version of Saberwolf in that regard, and her normals are very plus on block. Her throw is great and has great range. Her instinct is pretty decent too. She has increased range on her tail normals as well as increased hitboxes on her flames, and her run speed is increased as well. So this character has a lot going for her in the rushdown department, and it's pretty hard to zone her because of her predator stance. She can low profile a lot of projectiles in this game. Yeah, Riptor is a monster. I think she's very, very good, and I think that she's very underplayed. Go ahead and try Riptor out if you haven't already. Filling out the last slot in the top 15 is going to be my personal favorite fighting game character of all time, And if you know me very well, then you know that character is Mira. This character has great left-right mix-ups. Her air dash is very, very reminiscent of that of an anime character. Her teleport is really, really strong as well. She doesn't have the best zoning. Her bats aren't kind of really a zoning tool. They're more of like for lockdown, for pressure. And I really feel like they are only used as a zoning tool in certain matchups. Like you use the heavy bats against a Sadira that likes to be in the air a lot. Or you could use the light bats against General Rom to zone him out. But you're really not zoning with Mira. She has some of the best meterless damage output in the game. She has like the highest damaging counterbreaker combo without meter in the game, at the cost of some health. I think that's the character's big drawback, is that she has to spend her health on her abilities. She can get it back with her command grab and her bite linker, yes, but it's always a risk if you spend too much health. I've seen some Miras who never get hit spend their entire life bar on gray life, get hit once, and now they're starting their red bar with no instinct. You don't want that to happen. Blood management is a real thing. And her biggest weakness, I think, is other aerial characters. I think she loses pretty hard to characters like Rash, Sindor, and Omen. And it's very, very hard for Mira to get started against those characters. They kind of just do what she does better, unfortunately. Right behind Mira, coincidentally enough, I really thought this through. I feel like the 16 slot is probably going to go to Maya, her sister. So her daggers, yes, they're not as good as they used to be back in Season 2 when she was getting 70% one-chance breaks that we saw CD Jr. running terror over the community with. But this character still has really strong fundamental tools. Her normals have pretty decent range. Even her without dagger normals, like her stand medium kick, is phenomenal. And then she also has great lockdown. Like she could really safe jump a lot of the casts off of her throw with her jump heavy punch. And she has great ways of getting a lot of unbreakable to hard to break damage. You really have to learn what her tumble kick linker as a manual looks like. It's very hard to tell if you're not used to that animation recognition, but this character is like the manual god, especially if she's doing juggle combos with her daggers and the tumble kicks. She can be very, very hard to break, and it may seem like she's getting a lot of damage for free. You just have to recognize what animations the tumble kicks are to break them, because you're not breaking the daggers if you're in the air, by the way. You can only break the daggers as linkers, and this character is really, really obnoxious if you feel like you're trying to break her and you can't get a break in anywhere, because it's a lot of unbreakable damage. I think that's the best thing about her. Her daggers and instinct always come back, so she's probably going to get a homing unblockable or two off against you. That's really, really scary. Her damage output, not the greatest. She has pretty good ender damage, but overall this character is a pretty moderate damage character, and I feel like she really needs to get a lot of white life built up. Would be like 3 or 4 good throws, because her throws build potential damage to really get you in that position. So she has to work hard with strike throw. Her mobility is phenomenal. I really feel like she can navigate the screen really well, and she does have some pretty harsh weaknesses, like how does she get in against an Algonos? How does she get in against Idol and Mage form? This character has a couple of glaring weaknesses that I feel like are very, very difficult for her, but when she gets going, Maya is pretty strong. Continuing along here in the mid tier, this is going to be a controversial one, is going to be the real boy Shadow Jago. This character became his own character, I believe, at the end of Season 2 into Season 3, and at first, yeah, he was broken, he was top tier. After Season 3 was finalized, he was pretty much normalized after that. This character is still really, really strong, but he's kind of a high-risk, high-reward character, I feel like, because a lot of the stuff he does is relatively unsafe, and he does have to take a lot of risks to be successful. A lot of people say that a lame Shadow Jago is like scarier than a risky Shadow Jago, and I totally agree, but I feel like taking those risks is kind of necessary to winning. His dash is phenomenal. He has one of the best back dashes in the game. His forward dash as well. He doesn't have any invincibility on his forward dash, so just stop forward dashing against me on Wake Up. It doesn't work. But his dash through DP is a very, very strong mix-up tool. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but is a great way to get your opponent to be frustrated with you. Like, oh my god, I can't believe you just did that in net play. I can't block that. I have to write a really angry tweet about Shadow Jago now. No, this character is pretty mid-tier. His zoning is really good. I think that's probably the strongest thing about Shadow Jago is his fireball game. He can keep characters like Thunder out really, really well. But there are some characters that kind of just suffocate him. Like a good Saberwolf is really, really hard to fight. You can't really keep a character like that out as Shadow Jago. It's kind of hard. So this character is kind of middle of the road for me. I feel like he gets the job done, but he really is lacking in a lot of departments. He has screen presence, but he doesn't always have the best option for a character on the screen, if that makes sense. He can be viable anywhere on the screen, and he's kind of like a jack of all trades and master of none. The next character I'm going to be putting here in the A tier is actually going to be Kilgore. Now, there's a lot of mixed opinions on this character. A lot of people actually think this character is like really bad, like bottom 5. I just don't see it. His kit allows him to get a lot of damage when he's an instinct, and his zoning is pretty strong against a lot of the cast. He zones out characters like Jago, General Rom really, really well, and I feel like he's kind of still underexplored. Only recently have players like Base and Sonic Dolphin really been showing what this character can do competitively, and I feel like this character he's got a lot going for him, but there are some glaring weaknesses. He has to take some risks, and he has to spend his meter to keep himself safe. That's like a guarantee, so that's like what he's using his meter for. But he does have one of the cheapest moves in the game in the Shadow Metal Ball, which is not only a cash out, but is also a recapture as well. That's really, really good, and in Instinct he gets a ton of damage if he gets a launcher ender off of that that sequence with the Shadow Metal Ball. This character can be good in the right hands, and he's very, very technical in my opinion, and very hard to use. And he also does have some glaring weaknesses. Like, I think there's some characters that just don't care about Kilgore, like Arya, Rash. The top tier characters kind of just like, so what? So Kilgore is going to be somewhere in the middle of the road for me as well. And now we are going to start our B+ tier. At the top of B+, we are going to have Shin Hisako. This character is kind of gimmicky in a lot of ways. Her forward dash is a teleport that brings her up in the air. It's almost like a jump. So she doesn't have the best forward dash, but she does actually have the best backdash in the game. Her backdash is phenomenal. So if she's running away, she can actually zone you out really, really well. If you're a character like Hisako, she actually like kind of dominates her on Oki. That's very, very hard to get in. Her runaway game is actually really strong if you're the right character. And I feel like her normals are a little stubby, but she does have really great mix-ups if she does get in. She has like one of the strongest left-rights in the game. High-low game is really strong as well. Her lockdown with her orb is something to definitely make note of, because her orb is one of the best set play tools in the game, honestly. But I do think her biggest weakness is she can't get in against a lot of the cast. Like Shin versus Aganos, that matchup is ugly. And I feel like a lot of the characters you see above her kind of don't care about her, especially the S tier and a lot of the A tier. I feel like Shin Hisako is a threat only to certain characters in the cast, and kind of comparable to, I guess Mira would make a good example of this, where she either like bodies that character or she flat out loses. Like, she doesn't have a lot of 5/5, so I feel like she's kind of specifically a counter pick character, and you definitely can't just only use Shin Hisako. If you're going to play a character like Shin, you probably want some backups. On to our next character. A lot of you guys are going to give me a lot of a lot of hate for this one, but I believe Spinal is going to be right about here. And don't get me wrong, to this day, I still hate this character. I've always had a mental block against Spinal, and I feel like it's just because I mistime a lot of the stuff that I do. I'm not very technical when it comes to this game. I have a lot of knowledge, but execution heavy I am not. And this character doesn't demand you to be execution heavy, but you have to OS his wake up every time. And that's the thing, is this character doesn't have a great wake up. His backdash is kind of stubby, and you have to know how to be able to cover the backdash option while being able to cover the Skeleport option. That's really all it is, because it's not a true 50-50, because if you try to grab him out of the Skeleport on his wake up, he could backdash and punish you. Or if you try to do something that's going to catch the backdash, he might be able to Skeleport you and punish you. But it's your duty to find a way to pressure his wake up, to be able to do something that's going to recover in time against his backdash, and also be able to punish his Skeleport. That's really what it comes down to. You're looking for the Skeleport and hoping that if he does backdash, you can punish it. That's kind of what it comes down to. In this character's strengths, his frame traps are really good in my opinion. He's got some decent normals, and he's got some decent special moves. I think Bone Shaker and Soul Sword are really, really good, and he's got some really strong instinct mix-ups, because when the bouncing skulls come out, as long as he doesn't get hit, very similarly to Mira, the skulls on the screen are a big problem. But his biggest issue is that he's just so resource dependent. Like, he really needs to have all of his skulls at all times, and he doesn't start with any. Like, Aganos starts with 2 chunks. Spinal starts with 0 skulls. You get what I'm saying? So this character really has to work from the ground up and find his way in. He's got to rely on that jump heavy punch. He's got to rely on the dive kick. He's got to find a way to Skeleport and punish something. This character has to take some risks. And please, for the love of God, please stop downplaying Spinal. Right behind Spinal, we are going to have the god. I guess you're not much of a god if you're in the B+ tier, but you're going to be Gargos. Gargos is a character that used to be pretty broken, right? Back in Season 3, the release of Season 3, this character was untouchable. And he got nerfed I don't know how many times, and I would say he's pretty normalized now. The best thing about him is definitely his mobility. Having 4 jumps that he can go any which way with, that's really, really strong. But I feel like this character has a lot of the same problems that Spinal has. Having that lack of a wake-up option, not very good for him. There are some matchups where his zoning is really strong. Portal Punch can stop a lot of the cast. But I do feel like there's a lot of characters that just completely negate him and can rush him the hell down. This character on defense, no bueno. His instinct is also kind of a weird one because it almost hinders him in a way. Because if you pop your instinct and somebody's meeting you with a heavy button, you kind of have to burst immediately or else you're probably going to get knocked down and looped with sweeps. I don't really remember seeing too many people doing that before I did it to Rico at the World Cup, where I just kept sweeping him over and over and again. I forced him to burst. But that's kind of become the meta, and his instinct, like, it's great if you're plus, you know, if you're able to open somebody up and go high-low in their face when you're plus and you have all this armor and they can't sneak a heavy button in there. I mean, it's decent, and I guess, you know, if characters don't have great heavy buttons, then it's probably a really good option, but most of the cast does, and I feel like his instinct just isn't all that strong because of it. The most powerful thing about Gargos is probably calling the minions, but you have to spend your resources on that, and this character doesn't get a lot of damage as is. He's pretty low damage for the most part. He has to spend meter if he really wants a lot of damage, in my opinion, and that meter's usually going towards his minions. So all in all, Gargos, he can get the job done, but it takes a lot of work. Next in line is going to be General Rom. Now, General Rom at a first glance is terrifying. He's a true grappler. He's like the closest thing to like Street Fighter 4 Zangief, if you will. But he's like a lot better than Street Fighter 4 Zangief because he's got incredible normals. He's got really good frame traps. He has an OTG flip out and stomp. His command grab is insane. He has the fastest command grab in the game. His Shadow Command Throw is 1 frame startup. So very, very strong. His light command throw has a lot of range. And that's kind of all he does. So if you're a character that just doesn't have to ever be in his range, you kind of win the matchup because this character just, you know, he's forced to jump at you or wait his turn and eat a lot of chip to get in. You have to have a lot of patience and fortitude and perseverance to play this character properly. And I do think there's some characters that kind of get mauled by General Rom. Like, I think he's just walking all over characters like Orchid and like the bottom tier characters, but even like Jago has a hard time with him, and there might be some other characters along the way that are just like, General Rom can actually fight them. But all in all, this character gets zoned really, really hard. Being a true grappler in a game like KI is not a benefit. Zoning is really strong in this game. The screen is really huge once you get full screen, so you could really stay really far away from somebody for a long time. And yeah, General Rom just struggles, man. He's a total struggle bus. His instinct, I mean, it's always a comeback factor because all he needs is one touch. If he gets in, or if you go to him for some reason, and he gets that one touch and he can cash out a quick 60 or 70%, if you lock out even, you're dead. That's the entire life bar. That white life is going to completely annihilate whatever remaining life you have left. And that's kind of how he wins. That's his whole thing, is play around the instinct, play around the damage over time with the Krill. I will say Krill Shield is really good in general because it has armor, but if he's relying on that and he's taking all those extra hits and building up his own white life, it's almost a hindrance in a lot of ways. Being able to cancel out of it is good, but that's like where all of his meter is going, and that's meter he could be spending on his Shadow Command Throw, which is really what he wants to spend his meter on, in my opinion, is getting that free command throw, getting the knockdown, and being able to set up Oki from there. This character does not have as many strengths as he has weaknesses, unfortunately. Up next here in the B+ tier, we have the Dragon Lady Kim Wu. Now, hold the phone. I know you guys are going to say, well, doesn't she have like the highest damaging shadow cash out in the game? And yes, that's true. Her damage cash out is pretty good, but she doesn't build up the KV bar that fast because her linkers kind of scale combos pretty hard, and I feel like she really needs a super clean hit to get a lot of that damage. I think she relies heavily on resets. She has one of arguably the worst matchups in the game. Actually, some of the worst matchups in the game, because forget about Full War Kim, because that matchup's like a really hard 6-4. I could see even the argument for it being worse, but Aghanos is like, I don't even know if 7-3 is a good enough number distribution to be like, that's the matchup. It could be worse, because Kim Wu cannot fight Aghanos. That has got to be the worst matchup in the game that I could think of. This character is kind of a struggle bus. She has kind of stubby normals in comparison to a lot of the rest of the cast, and she really relies on dragons and dragon cancels to be able to do anything. Her parry is really, really good, but I think that it's almost risky in a lot of senses because people try to use that as a wake up, And that's not really a thing because, I mean, you just don't have to meaty her. And then she whiffs a parry and you get to kill her. It's like, ugh, not very good. She has great walk speed. Her normal's, like I said, very stubby. So she wants to be up close in your face and rushing you down. And I just feel like there's other characters that just do it better. I'm sorry, I really do. It's hard to zone this character, I will say. Zoning her is not the approach. But as long as you know how to play footsies with your character really well, not only do you probably outrange her, but you probably outdamage her too. Because she really has to get that cash out to be able to deal that big damage. And as long as she's not resetting you or building up a lot of white life, she's not getting big cash outs. So she has to get a lot of hits to win, in my opinion. She has to open you up a couple times. And her lows, kind of trash. She has her crouching light kick, her crouching medium kick, and her sweep, and they're all like within the same range of each other. She has terrible range on her lows, and one of them is even punishable on block, her down forward heavy kick. So, and that's just a sweep. The threat of the overhead is obviously way more. You're gonna be way more willing to stand block against this character. So defending against her kind of really isn't an issue, in my opinion. She really has to mix you up with frame traps, and that requires her to get in. So. I really don't think Kim Woo is all that strong. I think there's some matchups that she does all right. Like, she has a couple of, like, annoying 5-5s. Like, I think she can fight Mira pretty well. I think there's another couple characters in the cast that are just like, okay, Kim Woo, yeah, we have to fight her, whatever. But I really don't think this character is all that great. The last character, you see him right there. This is going to be Jago. I was convinced I was going to put him in B tier, but I'm going to put him at the end of B+. And I know you're screaming at me. You're going to be like, Nikki, but wait, didn't you think that Jago was going to be like the best character in the game back in Season 3? You know, the beginning, you know, blah, 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 blah. Why did you lose to Thompson so many times? You lost to Thompson for like 4 years straight. How's an S tier character going to lose to a B+? Listen here. The thing about Jago is, I didn't know the matchup, all right? I'm not gonna hold you. That matchup, I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't figure it out. I was bad at it. That was then. This is now. I've since then beat Thompson. I beat him offline. I beat him online. I don't want to hear it. Case closed. Jago, not that good. Here's why. His buttons, kind of the same as Shadow Jago's, right? But he doesn't have all of the enhanced tools that Shadow Jago has. He doesn't have any of the mix-up potential. His overhead, it's kind of a blow-up. Like, it's got good range, but you should be able to react to it. And I feel like getting hit by that overhead is usually like if you're getting caught backdashing. Usually that's the only time I ever get hit by it these days. His fireball game is pretty decent, but there's just characters that do it better. I mean, I feel like you really have to be a god with Jago to win a lot of the matchups that he's playing in. His health regeneration is the strongest thing about him, for sure, next to maybe his frame traps. And the thing is, he has to hit you with a fireball to get that health regeneration. If you just block it, he gets no health back. So you taking a little bit of chip damage is way better than him getting life regeneration. So he's probably looking to combo into his instinct, usually something that has a lot of hits done, like a wind kick or a laser sword, into the fireballs. We've seen the Jago combo a million times. And then they'll throw the shadow one in there and sandwich them together, sure. But he has to get the hit to get you to that point, you know what I'm saying? And I really feel like with Jago, everything about him is just really average. He's got average walk speed, he's got average normals. His special moves are pretty average. The best one he probably has is probably his medium laser sword, because by itself, it's +1 on block, and it doesn't have a lot of active frames though, so it's pretty hard to meaty with, in my opinion. Jago is just not what he used to be. Excuse me. He really has a lot of issues. He's got some losing matchups. Quite a few losing matchups, honestly. At the end of the day, I think he does flat out lose the Fulgor. It's like really hard for Jago to get in on a lot of the casts, and his fireball game just doesn't compensate. I don't care if he could charge it. There are some characters that don't care that he could charge it. They'll just teleport behind him and kill him for it. He's just really, really hard to win with at a high level. It's why you don't see a lot of Jago these days. And I just feel like I said, this character, there's a bunch of other characters that just do what he does better. And there you have it. It is August 26th. 2021, and I mean, it might not be that day when I'm posting this video, but that's the day that I finished recording, you hear me? Anyway, this tier list is what I feel about the game right now. For this tier list to change, I need to see something. I need to see somebody do something with any of these characters to make me think more or less of them. Like, if we get a Saberwolf player that's able to beat all the Arias and Rashes, I'm moving Saberwolf up. That's just the way it is at this, that's the way it goes at this point. If I see you doing well in tournaments and you're like beating the highest level players who are winning all the tournaments online with any of those lower tier characters, I'll probably bring them up. If I see any of those top tiers finally like if people figure out how to fight Aghanos better or something like that, I don't know, maybe I'll move them down. Who knows? But I think that after all of these years, and you know, this game's not receiving any more development or anything like that, this is kind of what I'm sticking with here. I'm pretty much sticking to my guns on this one. There might be some minor adjustments along the way. Maybe I'll put Kinwoo above General Ram. Maybe I'll put Shadow Jago above Riptor. So, you know, something like that. But I really, it's kind of like trivial at this point because I don't feel like my top 5 or my bottom 5 is going to change. And that's kind of, you know, that's kind of it. It's only going to be minor adjustments, you know, along the middle. And I think that's really what the discussion's all about. That's kind of why I skipped over the top 5 and the bottom 5 because you guys already knew that. That's really it, guys. I really feel like this is the definitive tier list for me for Killer Instinct. I know a lot of you guys are going to have your opinions in the comments. I know you guys are going to be like, oh, but I think Shadow Jago is the best character in the game, and I played this game for 5 minutes. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, sure, we get it. That it is what it is. I've played this game since launch back in November of 2013. Not every character was out back then, and I've seen the game progress a certain way since then. This, having played in all the tournaments that I've played in, having won whatever tournaments, yada yada, who cares? You guys have heard it a million times. This is what I think about the game currently. I still think that if you like a character, you should play them. I think that nothing should stop you from playing a character you love, and I really feel like don't let the top tiers persuade you into playing them if you don't like them. If you don't like Rash, Arya, or Fulgore, don't play them if they're not for you. You know what I mean? If you want a tier whore in this game, that's one thing, by all means. But if you're the type of player, like most people, who want to play a character that you either resonate with or you enjoy how they look, play those characters. Do me the favor. There is something there for you. All of these characters have their strengths. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because I'm me. I'm telling you to play this game, all right? Play Killer Instinct. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are looking to support even further, you guys can head over to my merch store. The link is in the description. You can check out all of the merch that I have on the merch store. There's a lot of UU merch on there. There's some of my original designs as well as a cool Fulgore Hype Beam t-shirt. You guys can find that there as well. Check out the merch store, please, and thank you. And once again, don't forget, guys, you guys can head over to patreon.com/UltraTechUniversity. This is my Patreon service where I teach people how to play Killer Instinct through my private Discord server. It has a ton of tech videos in there, exclusive content that I'm not going to be posting anywhere on my YouTube channel. It's just going to be for the Patreon. You guys can join my monthly tournaments as well as my weekly lobbies, and you guys can learn how to play Killer Instinct through me. So head over to the Patreon today. Thanks for watching.